Masai Mara inalilia usaidizi wako. And here is why. Now, Mother Nature blessed Kenya with the most eye-catching spectacle ever. This is the Masai Mara National Reserve. The Maraa is globally known to experience wild beast migration from Serengeti in Tanzania coming all the way into Kenya. This epic natural spectacle is often characterized by massive herds of wild beasts migrating to Kenya. And it happens every year. This uniqueness in nature is the main reason why it got widely recognized, attracting tourists from across the world. Our tourists wakimwalk wanaenda kudoze kwa camps and lodges, basically hoteli. Hizi hotels zimejengwa ndani ya reserve, and we have over 150 of them. The main threat in this case are these hotels. Jina moja nataka umark, the Ritz Marriott Hotel. This hotel is located on the Sun River, which is the actual border between Kenya and Tanzania. Hata kama ni 5-star hotel, this construction is an upset to nature. Why? It's literally been built on a path which the wild beasts have been using for migration since millennia. In case umekuwa kwa online, nikushow mwana vida flani ya hao wanyama wakikuwa stranded, hawezi cross river kwa sababu gani? Njia imeblokiwa. Picture me, hundreds of wild beasts stranded in the river, hawezi cross. Meanwhile, walami wanafanya nini? Wanawarecord. This is very shameful and an absolute threat to our wildlife, because let me tell you something. One thing about animals is that they are highly intelligent. So hata ukiwafungia nje ya leo, kesho watatumia njia nyingine. Lakini common sense, haja gani tupoteze one of the wonders of the world juu tu tunataka kujenga malojo? Kausha experience tourism, you know that wildlife is worth conserving because it's priceless. I wish more people learned that there has to be a sustainability element in every business that we do, especially if we're talking long term. Pesa si kila kitu. Tukiamka next year, tupate wild beasts as migrate to Kenya anymore, there's no amount of money that can buy that epic moment back. We will lose our nature, which automatically means tutapoteza hao watalii. 10 years ago, wild beast migration would last 3 to 4 months. This year, it barely lasted a month. Maraa is not in safe hands. And as a Kenyan, you can't afford to be silent. Dr. Metamei alienda kotini juzi with concrete evidence to challenge NEMA over this case. Daktari alituassure that will provide sufficient evidence to prove that there was no due process followed before the construction of this hotel. Which only makes sense because no way you can tell me that cutting down trees that take more than 100 years to grow makes sense just because you want to build a hotel. Money can never buy nature. Nature is home, and home must be conserved and respected. All of this is happening while your favorite MP anachant nini? Nikubad.
Could someone please clarify to me where the whole country was when Ritz was being built? And most importantly, Narok County, your chiefs, your governor, your senators, your MPs, your MCAs, the locals, where were they when the Ritz-Carlton was being built? I have to play the devil's advocate, because why is it now that we are being so vocal and so loud about the Ritz-Carlton? Who gave these approvals? Why wasn't it stopped in the initial stages or during groundbreaking? Why is it that we are making noise now? Stay tuned for part 3. Salam.
This is the Great Migration, one of nature's most incredible spectacles. Over 1 million wild beasts along with zebras and gazelles travel from Tanzania's Serengeti to Kenya's Masai Mara. They travel hundreds of kilometers in search of fresh grass and water, crossing rivers and evading predators. The peak migration runs from July to October, with August showing the most dramatic river crossings. But this natural wonder now faces a new challenge. The Ritz-Carlton Masai Mara, a luxury safari lodge, opened in August 2025 along the Sand River, a key corridor for migrating herds. The lodge features 20 tented suites, a 4-bedroom villa, plunge pools and personalized butler service, all promising guests a front row seat to the Great Migration. Local Maasai leaders and conservationists have filed a lawsuit against Marriott International, the lodge's local developer, Lazizi Maraa Limited and Kenyan authorities. They say the lodge obstructs a critical migration corridor connecting the Masai Mara to Tanzania's Serengeti, vital for wildlife to find food and maintain genetic diversity. The lawsuit also claimed there was no transparent environmental impact assessment and requests the court suspend the lodge's operation pending a full hearing. Marriott, which operates the lodge under a franchisee agreement, states that all necessary approvals have been obtained. But ecologists warn of serious ecological risks. Construction on the Sand River has been called highly ill-advised with potential for long-term impacts on wildlife. Many species in the reserve have already seen population declines of over 80% since the 1970s. The case highlights broader tensions between luxury tourism and local Masai communities, who argue that such developments disrupt land livelihoods and cultural practices. With nightly rates starting at $3,500 per person, the lodge exemplifies the challenge of balancing high-end tourism with conservation and community priorities. With the court set to hear the case at the end of October, the Ritz-Carlton Masai Maraa has become a focal point in debates over sustainable tourism in East Africa.
Some 10 years ago, let me say, wild-beast migration would last 3 to 4 months here in the Maraa. The migration this year started in July. They are already going. It's barely 1 month since the migration began, and they're on their way out. Why? There is grass here, a lot of grasses. If you went into the park, you'll see the park there's no grass. There are many areas that this wild beast have not gone to. It's just too much disturbance. Vehicles, harassment, and people, these animals just begin to face south because that's where there is peace. 5 years ago, this wild beast would go all the way to the Loiter Plains, which is just approximately 20 kilometers out of Narok town. You cannot see a single wild beast between the Maraa now, between the conservancies here in the Maraa and Loiter Plains. Why? Because there are a lot of fences, the wild beasts die there, they get traumatized there, and they don't want to go there next year.
Imagine seeing this and thinking, you know what's missing? A 5-star luxury hotel right on top of it. Well, that's exactly the thought process that went through the Marriott Group's head, opening a $3,500 a night Ritz-Carlton despite lobbying and outrage from Masai leaders. The site is no accident. Here we are in Africa, Kenya on top, Tanzania on the bottom. Here we are on the border, the Masai Mara, very famous national park. This is the site of the hotel. It gets interesting when we go to satellite view. So here we go. Proposed site of the hotel, which is opened as of last week. This happens to be one of the most important river crossings for wildebeest in the area. Again, you can see it along here. Interestingly, in the plans that you saw before of the hotel, this little construction up here was missing. And you'll notice that that is right in the path of the wildebeest crossing, as if the proximity of the lodge itself wasn't bad enough. But the plot thickens, this time for a good thing. This gentleman, Dr. Matame Ololdapash, has taken the Marriott Group, specifically this guy, its CEO, to court, claiming that the project may have violated Kenyan environmental laws and a 2023 moratorium on building in wildlife corridors. He's demanding the release of all permits and assessments that the Marriott claim exists, although none appear on the public record. The court did block his application to have the lodge opening stopped last week. However, they've set a formal hearing date for October 22nd. Well, I try to contain my outrage long enough to make something sensible about this. A couple of things that might actually help. Tag your travel insurance program, your airline loyalty points, your airline, whoever it might be, your corporate travel manager, and demand they boycott lodges situated on important wildlife corridors. I've gone ahead and made a list of them for you in the caption. After my last post on the Marriott's new lodge in the Masai Mara, I received a lot of comments from people telling me that I don't understand capitalism. And while that might be true to a certain extent, I'm not an economist, what I do understand is the economics of nature. And quick spoiler alert, if you care about money, the single stupidest investment strategy we've got is destroying it. So let's run the numbers. 4 quick examples. Number 1, mangroves. These guys save us $65 billion a year in flood damage, so they're essentially $1 billion seawalls built for free. Number 2, the Amazon essentially creates these flying rivers in the sky, or big moisture streams that irrigate the entire continent. Cut it down and agriculture collapses. Lucky number 3, the ocean essentially acts like $1 trillion machine, absorbing 1/4 of the CO2 we put out, yet we treat it like a landfill. And yes, pollinators keep our food supply going. They add $577 billion a year. And if you're wondering their importance, just ask this guy in China how it's going hand pollinating his entire crop, which is a true story after the bees collapsed in the area. Now back to Kenya. The wildlife is not just iconic, it brings in $1 billion in tourism a year. Meanwhile, the Marriott opened a $3,500 lodge right on top of a critical migration corridor where wildlife has already plummeted by 80% in recent years. If you want to argue economics, here are a few more numbers. This lodge has 20 tents. At maximum occupancy, it can hold 40 guests. It employs about 120 people. Meanwhile, Kenya's wildlife tourism industry employs 1.7 million people, and it all relies on the very thing this lodge puts at risk: the wildlife. That's not capitalism. That's liquidation. That's selling your most valuable asset for short-term gain, meanwhile bankrupting the entire system that keeps us alive. So, if we're talking economics, like we clearly are here, protecting nature is not charity. It's actually the smartest business decision we've got.
Marriott hotels are trying to silence a Masai elder who is trying to defend the Great Migration. Why is this happening? Because Marriott Hotels is attempting to build a Ritz-Carlton in the path of the famous Serengeti Great Migration. Maitami Oro Depash, a Masai elder, along with other Masai elders, sued the hotel chain to block this hotel from being built. But of course, these corporate wealthy businessmen are trying to silence him, and they successfully got a gag order on him. You can see in this message here that he sent to another advocate that they are trying to silence him, and so he is asking everyone to spread the word. They are trying to silence him because his campaign is working. There are hundreds of thousands of people that are outraged that Marriott Hotels would have the audacity to put a hotel in the path of the Great Migration. There was a hearing on November 4th where Marriott and Ritz-Carlton did not show up again. This case was supposed to be a single panel judge, but petitioners requested a 4 to 6 panel judge due to the national and ecological importance of this case. The court did agree with them that this case was too important for a single panel judge. In this photo, you can see an elephant trying to retrace its ancient migratory corridors as it states in the photo, with the Ritz-Carlton being constructed behind it. The audacity baffles me. So many animals in Africa that are only found in Africa are already threatened by extinction due to poaching and the illegal wildlife trade, which happens in the United States more than you think. Wealthy white businessmen from the United States are one of the most prominent groups that go to Africa and kill these animals. You see proponents of the hotel arguing that Africa relies on tourism. So many people go to Africa for safaris and to see the Great Migration. This will just help their economy. What happens when the animals that people go to Africa to see are not there anymore? What then? You're looking at a short-term positive impact with long-term negative results. And at the end of the day, if Masai elders, a native tribe to Kenya, are saying that this hotel should not be built, those are the people you should be listening to. If the court rules with Marriott Hotels, all it shows is that the highest bidder can win over indigenous rights, environmental rights, animal rights, and that anything can be developed for the right amount of money. If you know me, you know that African animals are my biggest passion in the entire world. The entire reason I went to law school for animal law was to work in international wildlife law and try to strengthen United States protections over animals in Africa. My number one bucket list item is to go to Africa and see the Great Migration in an ethical and respectful way. I've said it once and I'll say it again. The only reason these animals are not extinct is because of the work of rangers who put their lives on the line every year protecting these animals. About 200 rangers die every year protecting animals from poachers. The indigenous tribes that sue on cases like this and get gag orders against them because they are trying to stop a hotel from being built in the path of the Great Migration. Something that they should not have to do in the first place. There's a lady on Instagram called Jungle Doctor. Her handle is jungle_doctor. I'll put it here, and she has been involved in this case a lot. She gives great updates, so go follow her. They want you to speak out. Do not let this gag order silence what is happening. I'll put a screenshot here of ways she said you can help. Email Kenya's Tourism and Wildlife Department, contact Marriott Hotels and Ritz-Carlton Hotels, and ask them to respect the Great Migration in Kenya. I hate that this is even a topic of conversation, but I hope people see this video and speak out so this hotel is not built.
Ground inasema aje? One time. Ground inasema aje? One time.